Clear out now? The words echoed through the marble-floored hallway of Whitmore Financial Group's 32nd floor. Veronica Sterling, the new head of investor relations, stood at my desk with her arms crossed, her designer heels clicking against the polished floor as she tapped her foot impatiently. A single typo, one missing decimal point in a quarterly disclosure template that I'd caught myself during the final review. 10 years of flawless service, and this was how it ended. The irony wasn't lost on me as I packed my belongings into a cardboard box that security had so graciously provided. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where we dive deep into those workplace moments that define us, break us, and sometimes give us the last laugh we never saw coming. Stories of accountability, consequence, and the unexpected ways the truth has of surfacing when we least expect it. Before we get into what happened next, if workplace justice stories resonate with you, hitting that subscribe button helps us build this community. We're working toward 8,000 subscribers, and every single one of you makes that goal possible. Your support means everything. My name is Melissa Cambridge, and for a decade, I'd been the senior analyst in investor relations at one of Manhattan's most prestigious financial institutions. I grew up in a middle-class family in Ohio, where my parents taught me that every person you meet deserves respect, regardless of their title or paycheck. That lesson shaped everything about how I approached my career, from how I treated the janitorial staff to how I mentored junior analysts. Understanding that everyone has a story, everyone has struggles, made me better at my job. That Friday afternoon, as I watched Veronica's perfectly glossed lips curl into a satisfied smile, I realized she'd been looking for a reason to get rid of me since her arrival 3 months earlier. The typo was just an excuse. She wanted her own people in place, wanted to reshape the department in her image. I represented the old guard, the institutional knowledge that made her feel like an outsider in her own department. "Your access credentials will be deactivated in 30 minutes, she said, examining her manicured nails with theatrical boredom. "Security will escort you out. Human resources will contact you regarding your final paycheck and benefits termination." I didn't argue, didn't plead, didn't give her the satisfaction of tears or anger. I simply nodded, placed my desk photos in the box, collected my coffee mug with "World's Best Analyst" printed on the side, a gift from my former boss who'd retired 6 months ago, and reached for my personal notebook. The one with the burgundy leather cover that had traveled with me through countless earnings calls, SEC reviews, and crisis management sessions. "Leave any company materials," Veronica snapped. "That includes notebooks." I looked down at the burgundy leather. "This is personal property. I bought it myself." Her eyes narrowed. "Any notes inside are company property." I flipped it open, showing her pages of personal reminders, grocery lists, and motivational quotes I'd collected over the years. What I didn't show her were the 8 pages in the middle section, the ones containing the master reference guide for our proprietary disclosure template system, the one I'd developed, refined, and maintained entirely on my own initiative. "See, personal," I said flatly. She waved her hand dismissively. "Fine, just get out." 2 security guards appeared, both looking uncomfortable. Mike and Antonio had worked the executive floor for years. We'd shared countless conversations about their families, their dreams, their struggles with night shift schedules. Now they had to escort me out like a criminal. "It's okay," I told them softly as we walked toward the elevator. "Just doing your jobs." Mike, the older of the two, kept his eyes forward but whispered, "We know you didn't deserve this, Miss Cambridge. Everyone knows." The elevator ride down 32 floors felt like descending through layers of my own history. 7th floor, where I'd presented my first quarterly analysis and stumbled over every third word. 15th floor, where the legal team worked, and where I'd spent countless hours learning the intricacies of SEC regulations. 23rd floor, executive suites, where I'd once been commended by the CEO himself for catching a potentially catastrophic disclosure error that would have cost the company millions in fines. The lobby's revolving door spat me out onto Park Avenue, where a typical March wind cut through my blazer. I stood there for a moment, box in my arms, watching the Friday evening rush of professionals flooding onto the sidewalks, everyone heading toward their weekend plans, their happy hours, their normal lives. Mine had just imploded. I hailed a cab and gave the driver my Brooklyn apartment address. As we crawled through traffic, I pulled out my phone and found 17 messages in the department group chat. The chat Veronica hadn't thought to remove me from yet. Amanda Torres, one of the junior analysts I'd mentored. I can't believe what just happened. This is insane. Christopher Hayes, senior associate. 10 years and she gets fired over a typo she caught herself. What kind of management is this? Olivia Park, another analyst. Does anyone know how to run the cone template? Melissa always handled it. Robert Foster, associate director. I have the template file, but half the formulas are returning errors. Melissa must have had a master version. I smiled grimly at that last message. Robert was right. The template everyone had access to was a simplified version. The real template, the one with all the complex cross-references, automated SEC compliance checks, and integrated disclosure protocols that lived in my personal system. I'd built it over 5 years, on my own time, using advanced Excel functions and macro integrations that I'd taught myself through night classes and weekend YouTube tutorials. The company had never asked me to create it, never compensated me for the hundreds of hours I'd invested. It was my gift to the department, my way of making everyone's lives easier and ensuring we never missed a critical deadline or compliance requirement. And now it was gone. I didn't respond to the messages. Instead, I opened my personal email and began drafting a handover document listing all my active projects, pending deadlines, and key contacts. Professional to the last. Then I stopped, my thumbs hovering over the phone screen. Why was I doing their job for them? They just fired me without cause, without dignity, without even a conversation. Veronica had made a power play, and I'd been the casualty. Why should I make her transition easier? I deleted the draft and put my phone away. The weekend passed in a blur of emotional processing. Saturday morning, I allowed myself exactly 4 hours of anger and grief. I rage-cleaned my apartment, scrubbing baseboards that didn't need scrubbing, organizing closets that were already organized, channeling every ounce of frustration into physical activity until my muscles ached and my mind quieted. Saturday afternoon, I updated my resume and began reaching out to my professional network. 10 years at a prestigious firm meant I had connections. My LinkedIn messages filled with sympathetic responses and promises to keep an eye out for opportunities. Sunday, I took a long walk through Prospect Park, watching families play, couples stroll, dogs chase frisbees. Life continued, indifferent to my personal crisis. There was something oddly comforting in that. The world didn't stop. Neither would I. Sunday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Melissa Cambridge, a male voice, professional but warm. Speaking. This is Thomas Brennan, SEC liaison assigned to Whitmore Financial Group. I apologize for calling on a Sunday evening, but I'm trying to reach someone who can help me with a filing issue. My stomach tightened. I no longer work at Whitmore. I was terminated Friday. A pause. You're the senior analyst who maintained the disclosure templates. I was, yes. Another pause, longer this time. I see. May I ask who would have taken over your responsibilities? That would be Veronica Sterling, the head of investor relations, though I'm not sure what her transition plan is. Miss Sterling is actually who I've been trying to reach. She hasn't responded to 3 calls or 2 emails since Friday afternoon. Whitmore has a mandatory disclosure filing due Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern. The file they submitted for preliminary review is. He paused, and I could hear papers rustling. It's incomplete and contains several formatting errors that don't comply with current SEC standards. I closed my eyes. Of course it did. They'd used the simplified template, the one without all my built-in compliance checks. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, but I can't help you. I no longer have access to any Whitmore systems or files. I understand. Would you happen to have Miss Sterling's personal contact information? This is rather urgent. If they miss this filing deadline, we're looking at mandatory review proceedings and potential fines. I recited Veronica's office number and email, the only contacts I had. I'm afraid I don't have her personal cell phone. Appreciated, and Miss Cambridge. For what it's worth, I've worked with Whitmore for 6 years. Your filings were always impeccable. Whoever made the decision to let you go made a significant error in judgment. The call ended. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, a cold realization settling over me. Veronica had ignored the SEC liaison all weekend. She either didn't understand the critical nature of the Monday deadline, or she assumed someone else would handle it. But there was no one else. The institutional knowledge walked out the door with me. Monday morning arrived with unseasonably warm sunshine, the kind of March day that makes New Yorkers believe spring might actually come. I woke up without an alarm for the first time in a decade, disoriented by the silence, the lack of urgency. No morning commute to plan for, no inbox to check, no crisis to manage. I made coffee slowly, deliberately, using the French press I usually reserved for weekends. I sat by my window and watched the neighborhood come alive, delivery trucks rumbling past, parents walking children to school, the bodega owner sweeping his storefront. My phone buzzed at 8:45. Amanda Torres, texting privately. Melissa, I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone here, but you should know there's complete chaos this morning. Veronica just realized the SEC filing is due in 15 minutes and the file isn't ready. She's screaming at everyone asking why you didn't prepare it before you left. I stared at that message, reading it 3 times. The audacity was breathtaking. She fires me without notice and then blames me for not completing work scheduled after my termination. Another message from Amanda. Robert tried explaining that you were fired Friday and couldn't have prepared Monday's filing, but she's insisting you should have had everything ready through end of quarter regardless. She's demanding someone get you on the phone to walk us through the template. My fingers tightened around my coffee mug. The professional thing to do would be to help. To rise above the pettiness and ensure the company didn't suffer because of one person's incompetence. That's what the old Melissa would have done. The Melissa who stayed late without overtime pay, who mentored junior staff on her lunch breaks, who built proprietary systems on her own time to make everyone else's jobs easier. But that Melissa had been escorted out by security guards after a decade of loyal service. I typed back, I'm sorry they're struggling, Amanda, but I'm no longer employed by Whitmore. Any questions about filings need to go through proper channels. Professional, polite, firm. At 9:15, my phone rang, Veronica Sterling. I let it go to voicemail. She called again at 9:20, voicemail. 9:25, voicemail. The 4th call came from Whitmore's main number. I answered that one. Melissa Cambridge. Miss Cambridge, this is Dorothy Chen from Human Resources. Not the Chen I was told to avoid, just an unfortunate coincidence in the surname. I have Veronica Sterling here with me, and we need your immediate assistance with a filing emergency. I'm no longer employed by Whitmore Financial as of Friday afternoon. I'm not sure how I can help. Veronica's voice cut in, sharp and demanding. You can help by doing the job you were supposed to do before you left. The SEC filing is late because you didn't prepare it. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Miss Sterling, I was terminated at 3 p.m. Friday afternoon. The filing was scheduled for Monday morning. I'm confused about how you expected me to prepare something after my termination. You should have had templates ready for the entire quarter. That's basic competency. Templates exist for the entire quarter. They're in the shared drive, exactly where they've always been. Those templates don't work. Her voice hit a pitch that probably shattered glass in nearby offices. They're full of errors and missing half the required fields. The templates in the shared drive are functional for basic filings. If you're experiencing errors, you may need to check your data inputs or formula references. Dorothy from HR interjected, her voice carefully neutral. Miss Cambridge, is there perhaps a more comprehensive template that isn't in the shared system? Here it was, the moment of truth. I could lie, claim ignorance, but that wasn't who I was. Or I could tell the truth and let them understand exactly what they'd lost. There is a master template system I developed independently, on my own time, using skills I acquired through personal professional development. That system includes advanced compliance checking, automated cross-referencing, and integrated SEC requirement protocols. We need that template, immediately. Veronica's demand came like a crack of thunder. That template is my personal intellectual property, Miss Sterling. I created it outside of work hours using personally acquired skills. It was never part of my official job responsibilities or compensation. Everything you created as our employee belongs to the company. Send us the file now, or we'll pursue legal action. I smiled at my coffee cup. I encourage you to consult with legal counsel before making that threat. My employment contract, which I have a copy of, specifically states that developments created outside of work hours, without company resources, using independently acquired skills, remain the intellectual property of the employee unless specifically negotiated otherwise. The master template meets all those cry. Silence on the other end. I could imagine Veronica's face, red with fury, Dorothy frantically scribbling notes about potential legal implications. What do you want? Veronica finally ground out. Money, fine, we'll pay you for the template. I don't want money, Miss Sterling. I'm simply clarifying that I have no obligation to provide you with my personal property. You're sabotaging this company out of spite. I'm protecting my intellectual property. There's a significant difference. Dorothy's diplomatic voice returned. Miss Cambridge, perhaps we could discuss bringing you back temporarily as a consultant to help with the transition. At what rate? A muffled conversation happened off phone. Then Veronica, clearly forced to play nice, $200 an hour. I nearly laughed. Senior IR consultants in Manhattan commanded at minimum $500 an hour, and that was for standard work. Emergency crisis management, double that easily. That's a generous offer, but I'll have to decline. I'm exploring other opportunities. 300. Veronica's voice could have frozen vodka. I appreciate the offer, but no thank you. You're destroying your reputation in this industry. No one will hire someone who sabotages their former employer. I set down my coffee cup, my voice cooling to match hers. I'm not sabotaging anyone, Miss Sterling. I was terminated without cause after 10 years of exemplary service. I'm simply not volunteering my personal time and intellectual property to fix a problem that isn't my responsibility. If that damages my reputation, I'm comfortable with that outcome. I hung up. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. I'd never spoken to a superior like that, never stood my ground so firmly. It felt terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. The phone rang again immediately. I declined the call and blocked Whitmore's main number. At 10:30, my phone buzzed with an email. Thomas Brennan, the SEC liaison. Miss Cambridge, Whitmore Financial has missed their mandatory filing deadline this morning. Per standard protocol, this triggers an automatic compliance review. I've been informed that you maintained critical filing systems and were recently terminated. I want to be clear that the SEC holds the organization responsible for compliance, not individual employees. Your termination does not transfer liability to you personally. However, if you have any insights into systemic compliance issues at Whitmore that contributed to this failure, my office would be interested in speaking with you. Entirely optional, no obligation. Regards, Thomas Brennan, Senior Liaison, Securities and Exchange Commission. I read the email 3 times. Thomas wasn't asking me to bail out Whitmore. He was opening a door to a very different conversation, one about whether the company had adequate systems in place, whether they'd been relying on an individual employee's personal intellectual property to maintain compliance, whether my termination revealed deeper organizational problems. I drafted a careful response. Mr. Brennan, I'd be happy to speak with you about general observations regarding compliance systems. I'm available at your convenience. His response came within 5 minutes, with a meeting invitation for Tuesday afternoon at the SEC's regional office. The rest of Monday unfolded in surreal fashion. My phone continued buzzing with messages from former colleagues, each one painting a picture of escalating chaos at Whitmore. Christopher Hayes, they brought in an emergency consulting team. 3 people, been here 2 hours, can't figure out your template system. Olivia Park, CFO, just came down personally. I've never seen him on our floor before. Looks furious. Robert Foster. Veronica just got called into a closed-door meeting with the CFO and general counsel. She looked like she was walking to her own execution. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly hollow. This wasn't about revenge, it was about value. For 10 years, I'd given everything to that company. Extra hours, personal time, my own skill development, all in service of making the department better. And the moment it became convenient, I was discarded. Now they understood what they'd lost. But that understanding came too late, from a crisis, not from appreciation. Tuesday afternoon, I took the subway to the SEC's regional office in Lower Manhattan. The building was all bureaucratic functionality, gray walls and fluorescent lighting, so different from Whitmore's marble and glass aesthetic. Thomas Brennan met me in the lobby, a man in his mid-40s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Miss Cambridge, thank you for coming. I know this situation must be difficult." He led me to a small conference room where another SEC official waited, a woman named Margaret Wells, who introduced herself as a compliance review specialist. "We want to emphasize that you're not under investigation," Margaret began. "You're here voluntarily, and you can leave at any time. We're trying to understand what happened at Whitmore yesterday." I walked them through the entire situation. From the template system I developed to my termination to the emergency calls demanding I hand over my personal intellectual property. I kept my tone factual, professional, avoiding editorializing or emotional language. Just the facts. Thomas and Margaret exchanged glances throughout my explanation. "So to be clear," Margaret said, consulting her notes, "Whitmore Financial's entire disclosure compliance system for the past 5 years has been dependent on a proprietary template you created independently, on your own time, which was never formally integrated into company systems or backed up in company files." "That's correct. The official templates are in the shared drive and are functional. My master template was an enhancement I created to improve accuracy and efficiency." "And when you were terminated, no one in the department knew how to operate the master template." "Several people had seen me use it, but I'd never trained anyone formally on the backend systems. It's quite complex, requires advanced understanding of Excel macros and SEC compliance protocols." Thomas leaned back in his chair. "This represents a significant systemic compliance failure on Whitmore's part. They built their entire filing operation around one person's informal system, with no redundancy, no documentation, no succession planning." Margaret nodded. "And when that one person was terminated, the system collapsed immediately, causing a missed federal filing deadline." "I want to be clear," I interjected. "The basic templates work. They would have been able to file on time if they'd used the standard system and allocated appropriate time for manual compliance checking. My template automated processes, but it wasn't strictly necessary." "But they didn't know that," Thomas said. "Or they'd become so dependent on your automation that they'd lost the ability to do manual checks efficiently." I hadn't thought of it that way, but he was right. Over 5 years, the department had gradually shifted all their trust to my system. Junior analysts had never learned the manual processes because my templates handled everything automatically. When those templates disappeared, they didn't just lose efficiency. They lost knowledge. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, I'd provided detailed information about Whitmore's compliance procedures or lack thereof. Nothing I said was confidential or proprietary, just observations about how the department actually functioned versus how official policy said it should function. As I was leaving, Margaret handed me her card. "Miss Cambridge, you clearly have a deep understanding of SEC compliance systems. If you're interested, we sometimes hire consultants for special projects. The pay isn't Wall Street level, but the work is meaningful." I pocketed the card, non-committal but intrigued. Wednesday morning, my phone rang from another unknown number. I'd stopped blocking them, figuring the Whitmore chaos had probably run its course. "Melissa Cambridge." "Speaking." This is James Hoffman, Chief Financial Officer at Whitmore Financial Group. I'm calling to personally apologize for the circumstances of your termination and to extend an offer to return to your position. I walked to my window, looking out at the Brooklyn morning. What position would that be, Mr. Hoffman? Senior Analyst, Investor Relations. Your previous role. We'd also like to discuss promoting you to director level with appropriate compensation adjustment. And Veronica Sterling. A delicate pause. Miss Sterling is no longer with the company. Her termination was effective yesterday afternoon. I absorbed that information without comment. What changed between Friday, when I was fired, and today, when you're offering me a promotion? To his credit, James Hoffman didn't deflect. We didn't fully understand your contributions until they were absent. That's an organizational failure, and I take responsibility for it. You built systems that kept this department running, and we took that for granted. Why should I come back to a company that took me for granted for 10 years? Honestly, you probably shouldn't. If I were in your position, I'd tell me exactly where to go. But I'm asking anyway, because you're exceptional at what you do, and we were fools not to recognize that sooner. I appreciated the honesty, even as I recognized the manipulation in it. He was good at his job, but so was I. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. For what it's worth, if you decide not to return, I'll personally provide references and recommend you to anyone in the industry. You deserve that much. The call ended. I stood at my window for a long time, turning the offer over in my mind. They wanted me back, wanted me so badly they'd fired Veronica and were offering a promotion. 2 weeks ago, that would have felt like vindication. Victory. Now it just felt complicated. Thursday, I had coffee with my former colleague Christopher Hayes, who'd managed to get my personal number from Amanda. The place is falling apart without you, he said, stirring sugar into his cappuccino. They brought in a whole consulting team. Cost the company probably $200,000 for emergency compliance work that you used to handle on a normal Tuesday. They're offering me director level to come back. Are you going to take it? I shrugged. Part of me wants to. I loved that work. I was good at it. But they didn't value it until it was gone. What happens in 2 years when a new executive comes in and decides I'm expendable again? I'll have built new systems, trained new people, invested more of myself, and I'll be right back where I started. Christopher nodded slowly. You know what the real kicker is? Veronica didn't even review the file before she fired you. Robert told me later that he'd seen the report, the one with the supposed typo. You'd flagged it yourself, marked it for correction in the review notes. She just saw a decimal point error and decided it was her excuse to make a change. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. I'd suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was different. She'd wanted me gone, and she'd used the first available excuse, no matter how flimsy. The SEC is still crawling all over the department, Christopher continued. They're doing a full compliance review, looking at every filing from the past 3 years. Word is they're investigating whether Whitmore deliberately understaffed compliance to save money. That was serious. Federal investigators didn't pursue those angles unless they found evidence of systemic problems. How's the department handling it? Everyone's terrified. Half the senior management is in meetings with lawyers. The other half is trying to document processes that were never properly documented because you just handled everything. He looked at me directly. You built that department, Melissa. Not the official structure, the real working systems that made everything function. And they threw you away like you were nothing. I met his eyes, so what do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever makes you happy. Not what's expected, not what's professional, not what anyone else wants. What do you want? It was a question I'd been avoiding all week. What did I want? The answer surprised me with its clarity. Friday morning, I called James Hoffman. I appreciate the offer to return, but I'm declining. However, I am willing to consult on a limited basis to help with the SEC compliance review and to train your team on proper disclosure procedures. What would your consulting rate be? I'd done my research, I knew the market. $1,000 an hour, 20-hour minimum commitment, paid up front. A sharp intake of breath. That's significantly above market rate. That's the rate for emergency crisis consultation from a senior compliance specialist who can solve your specific problem. You're welcome to seek other consultants, but we both know the SEC review is happening now, and every day it extends costs you exponentially more than my fee. Silence, then, grudgingly, I'll have our legal team draw up a consulting agreement. The agreement arrived Monday morning. I reviewed it with a lawyer friend who specialized in employment contracts. She found 3 clauses that would have given Whitmore ownership of any systems I created during the consulting period. We sent back revisions. They accepted Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday, I walked back into Whitmore Financial Group, not as an employee but as an independent consultant. Security, the same guards who'd escorted me out, welcomed me back with genuine smiles. "Good to see you, Miss Cambridge," Mike said. "Heard you're back as a consultant." "Just temporarily, helping clean up some compliance issues." He grinned. "Half the building knows what happened. You're kind of a legend right now." The department was exactly as chaotic as Christopher had described. Analysts rushing between offices, printouts everywhere, the SEC review team occupying the main conference room like a military encampment. Amanda Torres saw me first and actually squealed. "Melissa, oh thank goodness, we're drowning here." I spent the first day just observing, taking notes, asking questions. The SEC review had uncovered exactly what I'd suspected: years of informal processes, undocumented systems, and critical functions dependent on individual employees rather than institutional structures. Thomas Brennan, the SEC liaison, pulled me aside during a break. "Off the record, this is one of the more comprehensively mismanaged compliance operations I've seen at a firm this size. How did you keep it running?" "Carefully, and with a lot of personal time investment." He shook his head. "They're lucky you're here to help clean it up. A lot of people would have let them crash and burn." I worked with Whitmore for 6 weeks, 20 hours a week at my consulting rate, $20,000 a week. In 6 weeks, I made more than I'd made in a full year as their senior analyst. But more importantly, I rebuilt their compliance systems properly, documented everything, trained a team of 5 analysts on proper procedures, created templates that were sophisticated but also transparent so multiple people could understand and maintain them. And I made sure every single piece of it was officially company property, formally documented, with clear succession plans and redundant expertise. When the SEC review concluded, Whitmore received a formal warning and a fine of $250,000 for systemic compliance failures, but avoided the more severe penalties that would have included trading suspensions and executive sanctions. James Hoffman called me into his office on my last day. "You saved this company," he said bluntly. "The SEC was ready to come down on us hard. Your systems and your cooperation with the review team made the difference." "I'm glad I could help." "The offer still stands. Director level, name your salary within reason, full executive benefits." I smiled. "I appreciate that, truly. But I've realized something over the past few weeks. I don't want to rebuild my career at a place where I had to be fired before anyone recognized my value. I want to work somewhere that sees that value from the beginning." He nodded slowly. "Can't argue with that logic. Where are you headed?" "I'm actually starting my own compliance consulting firm, specializing in investor relations and SEC disclosure systems. I already have 3 clients lined up." His eyebrows rose. 3 clients in 6 weeks. "Turns out, when word gets around that you navigated a major SEC review successfully, people want to hire you." He laughed, genuine and rueful. "Of course they do. Well, I hope you'll keep Whitmore on your client list. We're going to need regular compliance audits going forward. I'd be happy to refer you to one of my associates once I build out the team." I walked out of Whitmore Financial Group for the second time, but this time on my own terms. No cardboard box, no security escort, just my briefcase and a clear vision of what came next. My consulting firm, Cambridge Compliance Solutions, launched officially in June. By August, I had 7 clients. By October, I'd hired 2 associates and a part-time administrative assistant. By December, we were profitable enough that I could pay myself a salary double what I'd made at Whitmore. But the real satisfaction came from something else entirely. In November, I got a call from Margaret Wells, the SEC compliance review specialist I'd met during the Whitmore investigation. "Melissa, I have an unusual request. We're developing a training program for publicly traded companies on proper compliance system documentation. Would you be interested in consulting on the curriculum development?" I ended up working with the SEC for 3 months, helping create a comprehensive training program that would be offered to investor relations departments across the country. My experience with Whitmore became a case study, anonymized but detailed, of how not to structure compliance systems. The program launched in March, exactly 1 year after my termination. I was invited to speak at the launch event, a conference attended by hundreds of IR professionals. As I stood at the podium, looking out at the audience, I saw several Whitmore employees, including Amanda, Christopher, and Robert. Even James Hoffman was there, sitting in the back. My presentation focused on building sustainable compliance systems, emphasizing documentation, cross-training, and institutional knowledge. I talked about the dangers of becoming dependent on any single employee, no matter how skilled. During the Q&A, someone asked, "How do you prevent losing critical personnel who develop these specialized systems?" I paused, considering my answer carefully. You prevent it by recognizing and valuing that expertise while you have it, by compensating appropriately, providing growth opportunities, and creating an environment where people want to stay. But if you do lose someone, you survive it by ensuring that knowledge was never concentrated in one person to begin with. Document everything. Cross-train everyone. Build redundancy into every critical system. After the presentation, Amanda caught me in the hallway. "That was incredible. You're basically famous in the IR community now." "I don't know about famous." "Melissa, 3 different people at my table were talking about hiring Cambridge compliance solutions before you even started speaking." Christopher joined us. "The department's completely different now. They hired a whole team to handle what you used to do alone, and they actually get paid appropriately and have proper work-life balance." "That's good, that's how it should be." Robert appeared, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry I didn't speak up more when Veronica fired you. I knew it was wrong, but I was worried about my own job security." I put a hand on his arm. "Robert, I never expected anyone to risk their career for mine. You had a family to think about, I get it." The conference wrapped up with a networking reception. I was standing by the wine table when Thomas Brennan approached. "Quite a journey from that Sunday phone call to here," he observed. "Definitely not a journey I would have chosen, but I can't argue with where it ended up." "Can I ask you something? When Whitmore called you that Monday morning, demanding the template, did you know this is where it would lead?" I considered the question. No, honestly, I was just angry and hurt and standing my ground on principle. I wasn't thinking strategically about consulting firms or SEC partnerships. I was just refusing to be taken advantage of anymore. Sometimes the best decisions come from trusting our instincts rather than overthinking. As the reception wound down, I found myself face to face with James Hoffman. "Hell of a presentation," he said, raising his wine glass in salute. "Thank you." "For what it's worth, firing you was the worst business decision we made in years. Not just because of the immediate crisis, but because of what we lost in the long term. You were the institutional memory of that department." "I appreciate you saying that." "Veronica was convinced you were dead weight, said you were coasting on outdated skills. She was wrong about everything." I nodded, accepting the apology implicitly offered. "What happened to her, if you don't mind me asking?" "Last I heard, she was working at a mid-tier firm in Chicago. Lasted about 4 months before they let her go. Turns out burning through talented people isn't a sustainable management strategy." There was a karmic satisfaction in that, though I didn't dwell on it. Veronica's career trajectory was her own problem. The real victory wasn't her failure. It was my success. By the time spring turned to summer, Cambridge Compliance Solutions had 12 clients and a team of 5 full-time employees. We'd outgrown my Brooklyn apartment office space and moved into a small but professional suite in Midtown. I hired deliberately, looking for people who reminded me of my younger self. Talented, hardworking, undervalued at their current positions. I paid them well above market rate and implemented profit sharing from day one. Amanda Torres left Whitmore to join my team in July, taking a title of Senior Compliance Analyst and a 30% pay raise from her former salary. "I can't believe I'm working for you again," she said on her first day. "But this time actually for you, not just in the same department. You were wasted at Whitmore. I watched you catch compliance issues that analysts with twice your experience missed. You taught me everything I know about this work. I taught you the technical skills, the attention to detail, the drive to get things right. That was always you." Building the firm was harder than anything I'd done at Whitmore, but it was also more satisfying. Every system we created, every client we helped, every problem we solved, it all built something that was mine. Not something I was doing to support someone else's vision, but my own vision, my own standards, my own values. In September, I got an email from Dorothy from Whitmore's HR department, the one who'd been on the phone during that chaotic Monday morning. "Dear Miss Cambridge, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for my role in the events of March. I should have advocated more strongly against your termination, and I failed you as an HR professional. I've since left Whitmore and am working with an employment rights nonprofit. Your experience was a wake-up call about how companies treat valuable employees. I hope you're doing well. Best regards, Dorothy." I wrote back a brief but genuine response, thanking her for the apology and wishing her well in her new role. Forgiveness came easier now that I was happy. October brought an unexpected opportunity. A major financial publication reached out, wanting to interview me for an article about building successful consulting firms. The journalist had heard about my story through industry connections and thought it would resonate with their readers. The article, titled "From Fired to Flourishing: How One Analyst Turned Crisis into Opportunity," came out in November. It was fair, well-researched, and told my story without sensationalizing it. The response was overwhelming. My website traffic increased 500% in a week. I received 43 new client inquiries in 10 days. 3 different universities invited me to speak to their business students. 2 professional organizations asked me to keynote their conferences. Most surprisingly, I received messages from dozens of other professionals who'd had similar experiences. Fired unjustly, undervalued for years, finally finding success on their own terms. A community of people who understood exactly what I'd been through. By December, as the year drew to a close, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. 9 months from termination to running a thriving business. 9 months from career crisis to career renaissance. I was sitting in my office, looking over our year-end financials, when Amanda knocked on my door. "Got a minute?" "Always, what's up?" She sat down, looking slightly nervous. "I wanted to run something by you. I've been approached by someone at Whitmore. They're looking for a new head of investor relations and wanted to know if I was interested." My stomach tightened, but I kept my face neutral. "That's a significant opportunity. What did you tell them?" I told them I needed to think about it. "The money's good, better than what I'm making here, even with your generous salary. And it's a director-level position. Those are solid reasons to consider it. But I'd be leaving your team. After you took a chance on me, invested in my development, trusted me with major clients." I leaned back in my chair. "Amanda, I hired you because you're talented, not to lock you into staying forever. If Whitmore is offering you an opportunity that's better for your career, you should absolutely take it." "Really?" "Really, but can I give you some advice from someone who spent 10 years there?" She nodded. "Make sure they value you, not just with salary, but with respect, with support, with recognition. Make sure your job description is clear, your responsibilities are documented, and your contributions are acknowledged. Don't let yourself become invisible infrastructure that only gets noticed when it breaks down. Like what happened to you. Like what happened to me, You're too talented for that. Any company would be lucky to have you, but make sure it's a company that knows it." She smiled. "I'm not taking the job. I wanted to talk it through, make sure I wasn't making an emotional decision. But the truth is, I'm happier here. I'm learning more, growing faster, and working for someone who actually sees my contributions. The extra money isn't worth giving that up." Relief flooded through me, though I tried to hide it. "I'm thrilled you're staying, but I want you to know the offer stands. If an opportunity comes up that's truly better for you, I won't hold you back." "I know, that's exactly why I'm staying." The holiday season brought a natural slowdown in business, giving me time to plan for the next year. I wanted to expand services, maybe hire specialized consultants for different industries. I'd been focusing primarily on financial services, but there was demand from tech companies, healthcare organizations, even government contractors. By September, Cambridge Compliance Solutions employed 12 people and was profitable beyond anything I'd projected in my initial business plan. We'd helped over 40 clients navigate complex compliance issues, prevented numerous regulatory problems, and built a reputation for excellence and integrity. I sat in my office one evening after everyone else had gone home, reviewing our metrics and planning for the next year. My phone buzzed with a reminder. 1 year since congressional testimony. Had it really been that long? Time moved differently now, measured in milestones rather than monotony. I pulled up a document I'd started writing months ago but never finished, a personal reflection on the journey from fired employee to business owner. Reading through it now, I was struck by how much had changed, even in my own perspective. The anger was gone, the hurt had healed. What remained was clarity about who I was and what I wanted from my professional life. I wanted to build systems that made people's lives better. I wanted to work with talented individuals and help them shine. I wanted to create value, real measurable value, and be appropriately recognized for it. And I'd built exactly that. Not by accident, not by luck. Through intentional choices, hard work, and the courage to walk away from what wasn't serving me. The story that began with "clear out now" ended with me in complete control of my professional destiny. No one could fire me. No one could undervalue my contributions. No one could take credit for my work. Because I owned it all. Every success, every challenge, every decision was mine. And that, more than any dollar amount or client list or industry recognition, was the real victory. I closed my laptop, turned off my office lights, and headed home. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new stories. But tonight, I was simply grateful for the journey that brought me here, and excited for wherever the next chapter would lead.